$200 million for the Hexham bypass, $160 million for the Singleton and Muswellbrook bypasses, $170 million for the Golden Highway and $67 million for the duplication of Nelson Bay Road. The Baird government has thrown hundreds of millions of dollars at Hunter roads ahead of the election. But Labor is warning voters to beware, warning more than half of the dollars are dependent on the government being able to lease the state's poles and wires.
The fact is, this is a risky and financially irrational plan. For the last 4 years, they've neglected the area, neglected these roads, and suddenly, 5 days from polling day, there's hundreds of millions of dollars to spend.
Labor says its $303 million roads program is fully funded.
Our promises, our commitments are affordable and achievable and therefore believable. The government's promises are monopoly money, money they do not have, money they may never have.
But the Liberals hit back in Merewether today while announcing $50,000 for a multi-purpose shed at Townsend Oval, something that isn't an election commitment.
I'd be very, very careful about believing anything the Labor Party says. They're essentially behaving like a bunch of travelling con men. I must say it's been a very frustrating process, this election campaign, and people need to be very clear about their choice they're making on Saturday.
Vivian von Drainen, NBN News.
$267 rolling stock jobs lost since Christmas, and another 200 at Four Jacks this month. These shipbuilders and rail workers say they desperately need the state government to act.
This is an economic crisis for the Hunter region, and the New South Wales Liberal government should be standing up for jobs.
The Australian Manufacturing Workers Union has been lobbying the government for the Hunter to receive a share in a $2.8 billion contract to produce inner-city passenger trains. Workers fear that money could head overseas.
The state government's got to deliver for the Hunter. It's got to deliver for train contracts, and it's got to fight hard for the Hunter to win the big share of defence contracts, in particular shipbuilding.
Escorted by police, the rally made a quick stop at the Transport for New South Wales office before pouring into Civic Park. The union says all Hunter candidates have been asked to sign a pledge committing to deliver local jobs if elected. But today, the Liberals' Karen Howard told NBN News she hasn't been told about it. Labor's Jodie Harrison, meanwhile, joined union members.
I'm here to listen to the workers' concerns and also to provide them with my support, that it's an issue really important in New South Wales and to me in my heart.
Emma Murphy, NBN News.
With breathtaking views of beautiful Lake Macquarie, Belmont Pines Holiday Park is one of the city's best-kept secrets, paradise to its regulars.
When you see the water around here, I mean, it's just a magnificent place to live. But on top of that, as I said, we've become a community.
But for dozens of people, it could be paradise lost. Lake Macquarie Council plans to remove its 25 semi-permanent vans from the park and replace them with tourist sites. Some who occupy them most of the year claim it's a cash grab.
The main message, I think, is please reconsider, because we don't believe it's a fair draft plan.
Lindy and Greg Musgrove have been coming here for 18 years and have had an on-site van for 8.
Well, it's very distressing because the park's going to lose that identity of the on-site people who have been here for a long time. So it's not good news at all for us.
Council says the draft plan seeks to implement objectives by Crown Lands, phasing out the van sites over 5 years to increase tourist site demand. Meanwhile, at Whitebridge, public submissions are open until April 10 on a revised plan for this large site. An internal road has been widened, but residents say the density and height of the 91 dwelling proposal remains a problem.
All the same issues that we've had previously are still there because the buildings haven't changed at all. We'd still like to see the dwellings reduced because it's the same number of dwellings and that has all the same negative impacts on the area. It all still feeds onto a dead-end street.
Developers SNL say they've been through a design review process with council.
The issues of density and the height and the overall sort of mix of dwellings hasn't been raised as a significant issue, so we're quite confident that it's a good design and it's what council had envisaged for the site.
They hope to have it approved in June. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
We also sort of look at where the future of cancer is heading, because clinical trials can often take a number of years to get the right result. So we really have to be sort of future planning.
He's contracted until the end of next season, but David Carney has effectively been in exile since the Jets lost 7-0 to Adelaide in round 15. Since then, Newcastle has shed 4 experienced players, removed by coach Phil Stubbins and owner Nathan Tinkler. Having failed in his attempt to sack Carney, there's been speculation Stubbins has told the former Socceroo he'll again be considered for selection, something the coach denies.
We've had a conversation, as I said before. I'll just keep saying the same things, and then the same things about him getting the game for us. It's the same stance with David.
So he won't be playing at all for the rest of the year?
No, he won't be playing.
What about next year?
We'll worry about that when it comes, but the situation is exactly as it's been.
Stubbins also won't elaborate on Carney's future at the club.
We don't know anything about that. I mean, I think that's up for David's management to consider and look at, obviously, options that are there for him.
As for the rest of the squad, Scott Neville is likely to miss the rest of the season with a groin injury, but the coach is hopeful Ben Kantarovski and Zenon Caravella will be available for Saturday's clash with the Reds. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News. Officials from the Real NRL, Central Coast and Illawarra have watched the gap between the top and bottom of their leagues widen in recent years. In the Hunter, Wests have won the past 3 grand finals, while the Port Stephens Sharks have come and gone. Now the CRL is proposing a new competition involving the top teams from the 3 regions.
The first part of that is to look at a pre-season competition with potentially 8 teams, and to go back now, for each of the managers and for each of the divisions to go back, talk to some clubs to see whether they would be willing to put a team in that pre-season competition.
Real NRL CEO Matt Harris has been quick to quash fears the new comp would hurt existing leagues.
Each division would still keep their local competition. So the teams that potentially could participate in this higher tier competition would enter one team, and they would still need to enter teams in the local competition.
Eventually, a promotion and relegation system could be implemented, but only if clubs could afford to participate.
The long-term viability of teams in that competition is paramount. Therefore, the criteria would be precise and detailed, and there'd obviously be a funding requirement in that.
Harris believes the creation of a Premier Division could allow the likes of Port Stephens and Waratah Mayfield to return to the Real NRL.
It could actually create some additional attention to our local competition and attract some more supporters and some more corporate support as well.
He finds it hard to walk. He has had a stroke, which is disabled in a way in that he understands, but he can't verbalise what he's saying. So he wouldn't be talking coherently to people, and he'd be only shuffling if he was moving.
Young and old, black and white, more than 700 people united in outrage against the WA government's plan to close up more than 150 remote Indigenous communities. Something that came to national attention earlier this month when Tony Abbott described residing in them as a lifestyle choice. There were impassioned speeches and a call to take action at the ballot box. Protesters then took their message to the streets, marching through the CBD, demanding to be heard. The WA government has blamed the move on Commonwealth funding cuts. Aboriginal leaders say if state and federal politicians don't rethink their stance, they will take the matter to the United Nations.
If you move our people from our country, you can never take the spirit away and always call them and pull them back. And years ago, they picked our people up and shifted them out of mind, out of sight, put them out behind dumps and goodness knows what. Well, those days have got to stop.
Madeleine McKell, NBN News.
People are just devastated, absolutely devastated that someone could do that. It's just horrifying.
They've stood watch over Newcastle and Merewether Ocean Baths for decades, but council hopes the two ageing pavilions will soon realise their full potential.
Hopefully we'll have a partnership between a commercial operator and between council and have a great community facility on both these sites.
Council's seeking tenders from several companies who've already expressed interest in redeveloping the sites. The Lord Mayor says given the city's coffers, privatisation is really the only option. But she's promised the community won't be steamrolled in the process.
At this present point in time, council does not have extra funds to redevelop these buildings.
And it's not just the ocean baths in need of attention.
We have a significant asset backlog in this city that we need to deal with. So there are some tough challenges ahead.
A challenge she hopes will become a lot easier now Labor has the balance of power. Meanwhile, Michael Osborne is now in the Deputy's chair. The Greens councillor was elected to the position last night. He's the fourth person to take on the job in 5 months.
There'll be a lot more stability in council now that there's a good number of councillors that see improving the city as a number one priority.
Amanda Douglas, NBN News.
Getting physical was the name of the game at training today as preparations ramp up for a clash with the Panthers.
Train on the edge and play with that sort of intensity and quality. You need to practice like that as well.
That intensity was evident after Chanel Matautia came off second best after a collision during a drill.
We had a bit of a collision between James and young Chanel Matautia there, and there was a little bit of blood, but most boys are going to be all right.
With Corbin Sims out of the picture, David Farlongo has been named in the run-on side for Saturday's match.
Gets me a bit excited. Starting the game is always a good thing. It's always a good challenge against a physical team. No different to Panthers, so our boys are up for it.
Pat Vaivai has also come into the squad after some impressive New South Wales Cup performances.
Paddy gets his chance on the back of 2 man-of-match performances in the last few weeks. Explosive runner and, he's got a bit of footwork. He's a little bit of a different shape.
Coach Rick Stone hopes his side can keep producing the form it's shown at the back end of games.
The last 20 minutes of each game so far, we've showed some good qualities there, and I thought we showed a bit of composure and just some calmness to sort of execute our plays.
Michael Kane, NBN News.
There's been over 300 players represent Newcastle at National League level. So this is our annual Old Boys Day where we all come to celebrate all things Newcastle football.
It's also important that we engage with grassroots and particularly talented youngsters coming through that youth development program.
The launch of the new season began with a tribute to Association President Del Saunders honouring her 60 years in the sport. On the court, 7 teams are plotting to take down the defending champions, but Souths believe they can win back-to-back titles.
We know we've got a lot of targets on our backs and everyone's out to get us this year, but we're confident and determined that we can.
Bilby Dan has a young squad with lofty aspirations, with W League football striker Tara Andrews to make a few guest appearances this season.
She's going to be filling in for a few games, just where we need to fill some gaps, and it's great. I can't wait to play with her.
With a roster that contains former Hunter Jagers, Lara Wellham and Katie Bradstock, Maryville Tavern just wants to win.
We never step out on the court expecting anything less, and we definitely have the players to do that, and it's just putting it out there when we need to.
Forsyth's business has no expectations, despite surprising even itself by reaching the 2014 decider.
It'd be nice to say have a goal to win the grand final, but there's a lot of strong teams this year and it's be a very tough competition.
The Junction Hotel will field 2 teams, with the side known as Yoga Loft expected to be a contender.
Helen Wilson, our club manager, she has decided to sort of pull the top players into a top team to try and be really competitive this year.
I think it's a funny thing if early in your career you get a job and you go, wow, does it actually get better? You get a job and, sort of people, country gentleman cameramen swanning around this beautiful area with a television camera just documenting anything good or bad or interesting that happens. I mean, where are you going to find something like that?
That is our bulletin for this Wednesday, but before we go tonight, it's with heavy hearts that we farewell one of our own.
David Scarlett was a cameraman with NBN News at Taree for 23 years. He was a much-loved friend and mentor to a great many of us and was well known in the local community.
David passed away earlier this week, aged 50. 3 years ago, he did this interview about his love for the job for NBN's 50th anniversary.
I think it's a funny thing if early in your career you get a job and you go, wow, does it actually get better? You get a job and, like I sort of people, country gentlemen cameramen swanning around this beautiful area with a television camera just documenting anything good or bad or interesting that happens. I mean, where are you going to find something like that?
Convicted puppy killer, 25-year-old Nathan Thompson.
Mr. Thompson, you've just reappeared in court after pleading guilty to killing 9 puppies. What do you have to say for yourself? Are you sorry at all?
Briefly appearing before Newcastle local court, Thompson was today placed on a lifetime animal ownership ban, replacing a previous one for 10 years. He was also charged with 9 counts of torturing, beating and causing the death of an animal.
Police facts tendered at court reveal that Thompson did consider surrendering the puppies to the RSPCA, but decided not to because he didn't have enough petrol in his car. Instead, he decided to kill them.
Just one puppy survived, the aptly named Lucky, who's now with an RSPCA foster carer. The general public was banned from today's hearing, with Magistrate Ian Cheetham ordering extra security at the court following repeated threats to Thompson's life. That didn't stop animal activists from gathering outside.
I don't think he can see that his actions are in any way wrong, which is absolutely disgusting, and I don't think that we should have someone like that walking the streets as a member of our public.
And everyone's hopeful that he'll get the maximum, which I believe is 5 years, but everyone agrees that it's just not good enough.
Thompson is due to be sentenced on the 4th of May.
Why did you do it?
Madeline McKell, NBN News. With less than 48 hours to go, candidates were making their presence felt across the Hunter. The Baird government pledged $7 million for a new gym and outdoor performance space at the Hunter School of Performing Arts.
This is our principal arts and cultural performing arts school throughout the Hunter, and I know the school are very welcoming of the funding.
Meanwhile, Labor sent the shadow Special Minister of State to Wallsend, where he accused Liberal candidates of not declaring the funding sources behind their campaigns.
The other Liberal candidates in the Hunter have found a legal trick and they've driven a truck through it. And they said, we're not releasing that information until after the election. The Labor Party candidates have released that information.
However, the Liberals denied any wrongdoing and hit back.
We have fast-tracked the disclosures. Used to be 2 or 3 years under the old Labor government, but we've fast-forwarded them now. We put in our lawful returns. We've done everything we're obliged to doing. I'm disappointed that the unions aren't disclosing their massive third-party campaigning.
Madeline McKell, NBN News.
There's certain parts of the game that we need to improve on, but personally I think we have the personnel and we have the individual talent. I think it's just a matter of putting it together as a team.
taking the reins of a champion horse is never an easy task.
We're just feeling our way with him. He's obviously come with a fair bit of hype, being a Melbourne Cup winner.
Today, Chris Lees confirmed Protectionist will start in Saturday's BMW Stakes at Rose Hill.
We've always thought the BMW was a race that he could show up in. He's not far off racing up to his best, and we feel it's a nice race for him on Saturday.
The stallion's return to the spotlight has been far from impressive over the shorter distance, starting with the Peter Young Stakes. Followed 2 weeks later by the Australia Cup.
Disappointing results, but not unexpected. We were under no illusions that he wasn't going to show up in the shorter races, but it's giving him a good foundation for the next 2 runs, which is the BMW and the Sydney Cup.
Protectionist will be up against stablemate Lucia Valentina in the BMW. Michael Kane, NBN News.
It was pretty much wide open, and up until sort of the last 2 surfers, we pretty much had it in the bag, and just a couple of unfortunate events took it from under our feet, just not enough time.
Karen Howard on her final lap, and as the race to the finish line intensifies, the Newcastle Liberal candidate had one more announcement up her sleeve: $55,000 to install a safety fence around the Newcastle velodrome, blocking off 2 stormwater drains.
Making it much safer for when children want to come and ride their bikes and their scooters inside the velodrome.
The seat Ms Howard's hoping to attain is used to being in the spotlight, and tomorrow will be no different. She says it's a referendum on the city's future.
We make a choice tomorrow when we go to the polls to vote to take Newcastle forward in a positive way or return it to the dark ages of decay.
And rolling in today on the transport of the so-called dark ages, Deputy Opposition Leader Linda Burney and her Hunter candidates.
It is no coincidence that we are here at Hamilton Station. Hamilton represents the ultimate betrayal of the Liberal National Government to the people of the Hunter.
But their main catch cry of the day was be wary of the Coalition's proposed lease of poles and wires.
If there is one tiny doubt in your mind about Mike Baird's privatisation plans for electricity, do not risk it.
But the seat that's possibly attracted the most attention from Labor heavyweights this election is Port Stephens, an electorate the party is calling a key seat.
The revelations at ICAC have been absolutely important for people to consider in their decision tomorrow night.
There's been real issues here for a long time, and that they've now got an opportunity for a positive change.
Despite a swing of 14.7% to the Liberal Party, Labor believes it's done enough to reclaim the seat of Port Stephens tomorrow. Liberal candidate Ken Jordan says he isn't fazed by the opposition overload, but was critical of its links with the unions.
the unions have rolled into the town. They've obviously funded the opposition's campaign very heavily, but we'll just do the best we can, and hopefully people know that Ken Jordan's worked hard in the community for the last 12 years, and that will shine through.
Vivian von Drainen, NBN News.
It's the big news about town. Mining giant Glencore will close its West Walls End colliery earlier than expected.
Certainly our members knew that the life of the mine wasn't a long one, but this decision has certainly come a lot sooner than they would have hoped and they expected.
The mine, which was opened in 1969, has been dogged by environmental issues in recent years, including a massive grouting spill in the Mount Sugarloaf Conservation Area. Glencore was set to cease operation at the colliery at the end of 2016, but that's now been brought forward. The mine are blaming financial sustainability and tough market conditions for the decision.
The mine's expected to close its doors around the middle of next year. Glencore says it's working closely with its employees, with a portion of those likely to be redeployed to its other operations.
West Walls End resident Phil Howlett says the loss of 300 jobs is another blow to a community already dealing with a shrinking mining industry.
It's difficult around here for jobs. I think most people commute from the town obviously to other mines, probably Singleton and up the valley quite a lot.
It's a sentiment shared by Lake Macquarie Mayor Jody Harrison, who says the region will be $200 million a year worse off.
300 jobs is pretty big. That's 300 families who are affected, and that's very sad.
Amanda Douglas, NBN News. From the back of Burke to beautiful Lake Macquarie, 5 Indigenous boys are enjoying the best the region has to offer as part of a new police-run exchange program.
All these activities they would never experienced before. We actually took them to Nobby's Beach and Newcastle Harbour, and some boys hadn't even seen the surf.
It's a chance for them to learn about life on the coast, and police hope open their eyes to other possibilities if they apply themselves in school.
Some of them have come from really hard times out there, and it's just great to see them interacting with our local boys as well.
Today it was kayaking at Pelican. But it's not all one-sided. Later this year, police hope to send a group of hunter boys out west to give them a taste of what it's like growing up in the bush.
In 6 months' time, we intend to take 5 boys from Lake Macquarie out to the far west to experience life out there.
Amanda Douglas, NBN News.
They're a good side, we know that. We've beat them before at home. We're coming off a win. It's going to be a challenge for us, but I think if we can take the energy that we've had on the training paddock onto the pitch, it'll stand ourselves in good stead.
Defence in any team, good defence is your backbone, and we've got to keep that going. I think the first 3 games we have been consistent, and that's really what's won us the game. Our good ball and attacking sets haven't been great. We probably had a bit of drop ball in our attacking sets, and even the finish to our sets with our kicks, and we haven't had a great deal of repeat sets.
Their 2 captains wanting 1 prize. Stockton takes on Merriweather, and the defending champions are hungry for more success.
You know, all that counts is who wins tomorrow, really, and even finishing second, no one sort of remembers who finished second.
After being dismissed for 84 in last week's semi-final, the Lions just scraped into the decider.
I reckon it's prepared us well for this week. You know, it's a difficult week and difficult overhead conditions as well, you know, so I think it'll hold us in good stead for tomorrow.
It's been an incredible turnaround for the Seagulls, who were last year's wooden spooners.
Underdogs, I'm not overly, I don't think that's a big tag that we're going to take into it really, because I mean they've won 3 in a row, so it should be due to lose one really.
And guest of honour at today's grand final lunch, a former Test cricketer who's looking forward to this Sunday's World Cup final between Australia and New Zealand.
New Zealand's been playing some really good cricket. They seem pretty relaxed. Just doesn't matter if they bat or bowl first, they seem to be playing just as well. So, Australia's got all the work in front of them to do, but I think they can do it.
Michael Kane, NBN News.
Every game, we've got to be at 100%. We can't be below par because everyone wants to knock us off the perch. So, we've just got to train hard and hopefully injuries, don't come too often.
The girls and the culture they're bringing in, the sense of how hard they're playing, and the never die attitude is just fantastic.
It's almost a case of deja vu. Team Tim Krakenthorpe seeking support. 5 months ago, he was elected the Labor member for Newcastle in the by-election. The question is, will he be the member for the next 4 years?
I think things will be very close tonight. Absolutely. The Liberal Party have thrown a lot of resources at this campaign.
The Liberal competition, Karen Howard, who polled well as an independent 5 months ago.
It will absolutely determine whether Newcastle goes forward or backwards. There's nearly $1 billion worth of investment on the table.
Another seat tarnished by revelations at the ICAC, Swansea. But how much did the drama influence voters?
That has swayed me, yes.
Didn't it at all, because we've always voted Labor.
Today, the sitting MP and former Liberal Gary Edwards wasn't oozing with confidence.
Not really. I'll just wait and see at the end of the night and see what happens. The electorate will let us know what they want.
Still friendly with the competition and the woman likely to take his place, Labor's Yasmin Catley.
I can win. I think I can win. I think absolutely. I've worked hard.
In Port Stephens, the result is expected to be incredibly close and will be watched by the entire state.
I feel it'll be close. I don't believe we'll probably know tonight. I think that's how close it will be.
And flying the flag for Labor a second time in the seat is Kate Washington.
So we're hoping he'll be able to get the high school up and running, push him before he gets to high school.
Love to. Thanks for pushing.
Another seat being monitored closely by both sides of politics is Maitland.
Hi, I'm Jenny Atchison. I'm the Labor candidate. How are you today? Good, thank you.
Ms Atchinson's biggest competition, Liberal candidate Steve Thompson, who's president of the Maitland Business Chamber. But as far as seats with little competition go, Charlestown, where sitting Labor MP Jodie Harrison is expected to claim victory easily.
They're still very suspicious of elected members though, and they certainly want an elected member they can trust.
Also tipped to be a shoo-in independent member for Lake Macquarie, Greg Piper, who's held the seat since 2007.
I've got a long history with this community, and I think most of them know me pretty well. So I'm hoping that works well for me, but really it's up to the voters.
After winning the toss and electing to bat, Merryweather skipper Simon Moore came to the crease as his side needed a captain's knock. Pat Darwin joined him in the middle as the pair went about creating a partnership of substance. And it wasn't long before they took the Lions' total past 50. But it was Darwin putting on a show, dispatching the ball to all parts of the ground as the defending premiers went to lunch on 2 for 81. Stockton seamer Dan Upwood came close to producing a breakthrough for the Seagulls on resumption. It wasn't long before the defending premiers reached 100. And they kept the attack going as the scoreboard ticked over. On 98, an inviting ball from Nick Foster outside off stump was enough to bring Darwin's dig into triple figures. The classy ton coming off 107 balls. His innings came to an end on 127 as Merryweather went on to reach 7 for 385 at stumps. Michael Kane, NBN News.
The people of the Hunter have spoken, and Labor argues the ICAC weighed on their minds. As the votes rolled in, the party retained 4 seats and claimed 3 others, previously held by the coalition. No victory was greater than Kate Washington's in Port Stephens, which saw a 20% swing to the ALP. Today, Ms Washington took it all in, surrounded by supporters.
We hadn't had the benefit of by-elections in our area, and this was the first opportunity for the community to voice its opposition to what had happened.
And the shift to Labor didn't stop there, with Jenny Atchison securing 42% of the vote in Maitland. She puts it down to 2 things.
They don't want the privatisation of the electrical network and also the lack of trust and the broken promises.
Another successful female candidate for Labor was Yasmin Catley in Swansea, who replaces Liberal turned independent Gary Edwards.
There's been a whole host of Labor members elected here in the Hunter region, and we will make sure that we are a strong voice for the Hunter region.
In Newcastle, Labor's Tim Krakenthorpe retained the seat he secured in the October by-election, but only by a couple of thousand votes. Today the challenge came from his sons. Tomorrow it will be trying to keep the rail line against the wishes of the Baird government.
Minister Goward and Minister Berejiklian said this will be a referendum on the rail line, and we've had overwhelming support for candidates who support reinstating that rail line.
Also back in, Charlestown Labor MP Jodie Harrison.
This time round, there was a Liberal standing against me. So to have this result again is very, very reassuring.
Clayton Barr, Sonia Hornery and Greg Piper retained their seats, while the only one that will remain in coalition hands is the Upper Hunter, despite a 19.5% swing to Labor.
Given the fact that the government's been re-elected, I think it augurs very well for the Upper Hunter.
Vivian von Drainen, NBN News.
With 380 on the board, Merewether began day 2 in a commanding position, but Stockton Raymond Terrace was showing no fear. While at times the defending champions were unlucky, it wasn't long before they struck the first blow. The second came just 2 balls later. Stockton skipper Jeff Kinnunen dug in to make 22, but by early this afternoon, the side's dream of going from wooden spooners to champions was fading fast. Soon after, Hamish Bartlett caught Jack Warren for 22, and Brian Warren soon followed. The score, 9 for 152. Ben West offered some late resistance, but the outcome was inevitable.
It's a great feeling. This is, to play with your mates is one thing, that's what it's all about, and then to win's the other, And
the Lions, champions for a 4th consecutive year and in impressive fashion.
when you're playing for 2-day finals, it was nearly perfect for us how it all turned out.
Pat Darwin was awarded the Ken Clifford Medal for his knock of 127, while Seagull skipper Nick Foster was in a reflective mood after the loss.
Any final in any sport is a hard thing to swallow, but to turn it around from running last year and end up playing here on the final day of the season is quite something for our club.
Samuel Jordan, NBN News.
It'll be fantastic for the league in fact it actually helped the clubs out. That makes them more one, I suppose, with the women there along with the men. So look, the interest has been fantastic from the women. It's exceeded what we've expected.
Monday morning and Team Labor was meeting for the first time since its resounding success on Saturday. Top of the agenda, how to be heard in a Liberal government, something returning member for Wallsend Sonia Hornery, who claimed 58% of the primary vote in her seat, knows all about.
Now there's 7 of us. It will be very, very difficult for the Baird government, in fact impossible, for them to ignore us when we have issues.
The first big issue, the future of the rail line and the state government's plans for the corridor. The Hunters Labor MPs say the coalition needs to take notice of the election result in the region.
He may have been elected as the Premier with a majority of seats, but he certainly didn't receive any seats in the Hunter. What does that say to him? It says to him that we don't want the rail line to be cut here in the Hunter.
They've simply lied to us. They said it would be a referendum, and now it's not. You know, they said there'd be no development on the rail line, and now there is. They can't be trusted.
Save Our Rail says the vote was a rejection of the government's plans and believes it gives further weight to its argument.
We will win the Supreme Court appeal in July. We've got strong legal advice that we will win.
NBN News contacted the Office of Transport Minister Gladys Berejiklian today for a response about the rail line, but she's yet to comment. Vivian von Drainen, NBN News.
A full house at Bonnells Bay Community Centre as the Planning Assessment Commission, or PAC, heard from passionate speakers regarding the Trinity Point residential, commercial and 108 berth marina complex. Two local progress associations say they have no objections to a suitable high-quality project, but believe various modifications have blurred the big picture and confused the community.
The original development that was approved in 2009 by Christina Keneally has been turned upside down and not being processed as a single development as it was in those days.
Developer Keith Johnson says he wants to create a project the next generation will be proud of on the 23-hectare waterfront site in Morisset Park.
This is a project that Lake Macquarie Council wanted to be a tourist site, wanted employment zone. We're following that plan. This is a world-class $388 million development.
Today's hearing related to Stage 1, a 72-berth marina, and changes in relation to the delivery of the marina over 6 stages rather than 2, creating more flexibility to meet demand.
These modifications are being treated separately, and that's a problem. The whole of the development out there, which is quite massive, should be examined as a whole.
The Planning Department has assessed the marina and made recommendations, including that yachts of 20 to 30 metres not be allowed. The PAC will now make a determination. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
We all know how busy public emergency departments are, and their expectations of wait times and going to the public system are normally quite lengthy, whereas coming here we should be resourced that people's wait times will be minimal.
Walking through dense bushland with cannabis crops in their sights. Drug squad officers on an annual mission in northern New South Wales that's designed to prevent illegal drugs from reaching our streets.
As you can see, look at the all starting to mature.
Polair provided eyes in the sky and helped locate this crop in the Coffs Harbour region, where police say they seized $500,000 worth of cannabis plants.
It's showing that quite clearly these have been grown for profit. These are plants that have been cultivated and grown for supply.
After being removed from the bush, the plants measuring up to 4 metres were taken away and destroyed. It's part of a drug eradication program which has been running since the 1980s. The operation from late spring to early autumn saw more than 4,800 plants seized from the New England Local Area Command, along with about 2,500 in Richmond and Clough's Clarence and just under 1,500 in Tweed Byron. Police say several people have been charged with drug offences. Lauren Kelly, NBN News.
Consider this the warm-up to April's Autism Awareness Month. There'll be no avoiding the exercises on April 11 at a giant boot camp in Newcastle's King Edward Park.
I'm quite lazy now. Like, since we did that walk from Melbourne, I don't think I've really done anything. So I'm kind of excited, especially Easter's coming up as well, so we're going to have to burn it off.
Yeah, you don't have to feel as guilty eating all those eggs if you get on board with this.
Not when you work out with trainer Connor Perry-Stanton. Boot Camp for Autism is his idea, and while his clients say he's tough...
He's hard.
He says anyone aged over 12 will be able to take part.
It's designed for all levels of fitness and all ages. So it's a lot of bodyweight stuff, exercises that are easy to pick up. You don't have to be advanced to come along.
But there is one requirement.
This year we're going rainbow for autism to highlight the difference of all the children on the autism spectrum. So yeah, we're encouraging everyone to wear their bright colours and we'll fill the part with rainbow.
All money raised will go to the Aspect Hunter School.
We've got plans for sensory swings that really help the systems of our students to regulate and to help them have happier days.
Karsten might need a little cheering up. For more information, look up Boot Camp for Autism on Facebook.
Four from four and top of the table. The Knights could be forgiven for feeling confident. But today it was back to training and staying grounded.
We obviously train well in the pre-season to start the year well. We've got a lot of home games early on in the season, so we knew we had to start well.
Saturday's 26-14 win over Penrith showed plenty of attacking flair and brutal defence, as the forward pack built on its growing reputation as one of the game's toughest.
Our forwards have been tremendous. When they're going forward, it's no surprise that our outside backs can do their thing.
The 5'8" has a simple explanation for his side's success.
I think getting everyone happy at training is a main thing. All the boys are happy around training and happy around each other, so it goes a long way to winning footy.
Mullen was a standout against the Panthers, his supply pinpoint and his running powerful. It's all timely with rep football approaching.
First couple of rounds, I took a while to get my feet, but on the weekend was encouraging, so I've got to keep building on that every week.
Meanwhile, Robbie Rockow is facing a long stint on the sideline, with scans taken today expected to confirm the 24-year-old needs surgery for a back injury. Samuel Jordan, NBN News. An improved performance, but a familiar result. Again, the Jets were left to rue missed opportunities.
Yeah, we should have won the game. We were the better team. 54% possession, more shots on goal, more entries into the front third.
Newcastle created a number of golden chances. And while Adelaide was far from convincing, the visitors found a way to secure the 3 points.
We sort of did an Adelaide to Adelaide, really, and extremely unlucky. But as I said, it's been the story of our campaign.
But we definitely deserved to get points out of that game. We had the chances and I think we dominated
the ball, dominated the game. We had the possession and I think we outplayed them.
Max Burgess made his debut for the Jets in the last 30 minutes. The 20-year-old was pleased to be given a run, but wasn't satisfied with the outcome.
You play football to win games, so if you're not winning, you're not happy. So, but you know, there is positives there. We created the chances, so yeah, it's frustrating.
The former Sydney FC player has been staying in a local hostel since arriving in the city. He signed until the end of the season, but wants to make the move permanent.
I need to show I'm good enough at this level. So, you know, every moment you're on the field, you got to impress.
Samuel Jordan, NBN News.